Welcome to another Dragonlance Saga Order of Aesthetics News Update Live. That's right, it is Brook Green the 13th. A little solemnic month and day reference there. My name is Adam, and today I will be sifting through the Order's files, if I can get it out of my doggone mouth. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the Wizards of the Coast Weis and Hickman lawsuit. Now, I know, everyone knows everything about this already, but it came out before I had a chance to talk about it, before I started this show. And because it's such a pivotal conversation to be had on the future of Dragonlance, I feel like I have to do a little backstepping here, because you can't talk about the future without acknowledging the past. Now, this news format of a show is only going to happen when there's news to be discussing. Now, this just came out earlier this year that there are going to be new publications written by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. And so, again, I wanted to go a little bit back, talk a little bit about it. And hopefully, we'll have a good time in the process. So, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, ring the bell, and you can always support this channel and pick up some Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link in this description below. So check that out. Let's get into this lawsuit. So what you're looking at here on the screen are the actual court documents. And this was filed in December the 18th of 2020. And it's from Margaret Weiss LLC and Tracy Hickman against Wizards of the Coast LLC. So, oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Here we are. Now, a little bit of background here. In 2017, Weis and Hickman approached Wizards of the Coast to start a new Dragonlance Trilogy. The trilogy was going to be seen as a capstone to their life's work as an offering to their fans. In March 2019, they actually entered into a written licensing agreement to write and publish with Penguin Random House. Wizards of the Coast had a full overview of the story and story arc between the three novels with considerable detail of the entirety of the planned trilogy. It was going to last 10 years, and there was going to be a book a year with other marketing responsibilities. Now, this was, again, in March 2019. And you can see here that they open with, every lawsuit has to open with a bit of discovery. And I just love the statement, so I wanted to talk about it just briefly here. But it's saying that their Dragonlance world of Krynn is arguably the most successful and popular world in shared fiction, rivaled in the fantasy realm only by the renowned works created by J.R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I've mentioned it before that this is like the greatest saga comparable to Star Wars and to The Lord of the Rings. But to see other people reference the magnitude of the Dragonlance world, the Dragonlance IP, is reassuring. I actually really appreciate that other people are talking about it in the same way that I am. And not to say that, I came up with anything, because I didn't. It's just, I'm obsessed with this world, and so it's nice to see other people obsessed as well. So again, in and around 17, the Weis and Hickman approached Wizards of the Coast, and they were receptive to licensing with the authors the Dragonlance world, and they're going to start the new trilogy here. Negotiations between the parties culminated in the written licensing agreement with, the point of publishing with Random House, Penguin Random House. By June 2019, Wizards of the Coast received and approved a full outline of the contracted book in the trilogy Book 1, and they accepted the manuscript, and it was approved in 2020. That being said, Book 1 was titled Dragons of Deceit, and they sent them Book 2, which a substantial work had been completed with, the outline already approved for it. And Book 2 was actually going to be called Dragons of Fate, which is kind of interesting because Dragons of Deceit and Dragons of Fate are actually titles of the original modules that were outlined and originally conceived by Tracy Hickman back in the old school days of TSR. So that's really interesting that they're going back and talking about using the same language, which can give us an opportunity of speculating. What are these going to be about? How are they going to be approaching these new books in relation to the old ones? And if you guys remember back in the early 2000s when Sovereign Press took licensing for the Dragonlance 3.5 edition, they were releasing the old school modules under sort of compacted sets, right? So like the first 4 modules were wrapped up together in an adventure called Dragons of Autumn. So they are continually referencing the same language that they did with the books and the modules in order to focus, I think, creatively to explain what era their content is being locked into for the sake of, us. So we know, they're using this same vernacular to help us understand what's going on. Okay, so what eventually happened was after Wizards of the Coast accepted the first book and had eyes on the second book, they started proposing changes. And their argument was they needed to keep with the modern day zeitgeist of a more inclusive and diverse story world. And this, I'm of two minds about this, right? Because honestly, there's nothing wrong with casting the widest net and being approachable by the widest audience. And certainly, Dragonlance has never been excluding of any types of people. But our modern culture, certainly in America and arguably worldwide, is one that has taken a very politically correct turn. Now, you can see that as good or bad, and that's on you. But for the sake of Dragonlance as an IP, it means that it's going to be changing what was already inclusive and adjusting it, just naturally inclusive, and manually adjusting it to be more inclusive. And I don't know if that is going to ultimately be a good or bad thing. When you navigate our world right now, it is genuinely challenging to, you're seeing cancel culture take really the reins of our society. And I'm not entirely sure that's a good thing, because I do believe in freedom of speech. I don't believe in biases negatively targeting innocent individuals, racism, sexism, etc. I think that's a terrible thing. But I also don't believe that people should be policed by others through their language and action. And that's exactly what Wizards of the Coast is doing with Dragonlance. They are policing what arguably has never had a problem in the first place. You're trying to fix something that is not broke by the people who originally wrote the first trilogy. It just struck me as odd, is I guess my point in all of this, right? That they would go to a wildly successful group of authors and say, you need to change the way you're doing this. That has, by every measure, been wildly successful. But okay, they did. Okay, so when Weis and Hickman did significant rewrites, I think it was like 70 pages. 70 pages worth of rewrites to the first book in order to meet the new expectations. They canceled the whole thing. So in August 13th, 2020, the defendants participated in a telephone conference with, Weis and Hickman were in a phone conference with Wizards of the Coast's agents, including high-level Penguin Random House, as well as Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro executives. And they said flat out that they would not approve any further drafts of Book 1, and they were not going to do any more work with the agreement that they had set with Weis and Hickman. Now, this effectively repudiated and terminated the license agreement arbitrarily, without contractual basis, which is the point of this lawsuit, as you see. millions of dollars at stake, and they completely stopped. Because why? Well, the speculation is Wizards of the Coast was embroiled at this time in a series of embarrassing public disputes whereby its non-Dragonlance publications were excoriated for racism and sexism. It was vilified by well-publicized allegations of misogyny and racist hiring and employment practices. So, that is crazy. And specifically, in June 2020, Wizards of the Coast changed their editorial team, removing Liz Shue and Hillary Ross and replacing them with Nick Kelman and Paul Morrissey. Kelman, in 2019, published his own sexually explicit novel, Girls A Pain, which was subject to ongoing public discussions of whether or not it promoted misogyny and pedophilia. Filthy. And then they put him in charge of books. That's insane. And this isn't a cancel culture reference in this particular case. This is just a straight poor judgment call. And we can't not talk about the absurdity of it. His works contain trigger warnings and implied sexual abuse and statutory rape, which in and of itself are not topics that should not be discussed in our societal vernacular. We have to have conversations about difficult topics. But to take someone who creates work and has controversy surrounded by it and put them in an editorial position out of seemingly nowhere is a strange move for Wizards of the Coast to make, and only the first in a series of really bad moves, ending specifically with the arbitrary cancellation of Dragonlance, right? Let's see. I wanted to go through a couple other points here because, again, this is the literal court filings, and I've highlighted some notes here. But they argued that the Penguin Random House deal was worth in excess of $10 million to Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. That is no small amount of money. That's huge. And when you think of the scope, history of what Dragonlance has created for not just the authors in royalties, but also the companies that license the IP, whether it's TSR or Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro as the parent company. They're throwing away tons of money at this point. Book 1 was provisionally identified and named Dragons of Deceit. By late 2019, they had already completed substantial work on Book 2. And this is when they sent it to the oversight team, and you're seeing what I just mentioned with the initial bad decision of changing out the editorial team. So these editors issued 4 points of comments dealing with various sensitive issues ranging from the use of love potions in the story, concerns of sexism, inclusivity, and potential negative connotations of certain character names, to Weis and Hickman, who then did the 70 pages worth of rewrites and then submitted it back to them for approval, which was then approved. Let's see, the plaintiff creators also informed them that they had completed Book 2 of the trilogy, provisionally titled Dragons of Fate. And this is when the controversies that were going on with Hasbro IPs like Magic the Gathering, which was allegedly pervasive racism, various forms of cultural insensities and offensivenesses. Mr. Kelman remained the controversial hiring, and he had allegedly he hired an alleged white supremacist, alt-right, QAnon-affiliated artist, Therese Nielsen, who was targeted by detractors and was allegedly over-sexualizing work. Now, if someone admits to being a white supremacist, alt-right, or QAnon affiliated individual, that is a bad decision on their part. If they are being pointed out as such without having been affiliated or overtly sharing those ideas, that's cancel culture. And that's not a good thing. But it's the controversy that is the issue, not whether or not Therese Nielsen is any of those nomenclatures. And because of the constant controversy, it shines a whole negative light on Mr. Kelman and Wizards of the Coast. And we're seeing this right now with Disney and, why can't I remember her name? The lady who played in, the wrestler who played in The Mandalorian. I can't remember her name right now, but she said some, distasteful things, but I don't think language is an excuse for firing when she didn't actually do anything. Gina Carano is the woman who just popped in my head. She made some really distasteful remarks, but they weren't sort of out of the line of the tone of what everyone has been saying for the past 10 years in political speech. So it's just strange that this is a culture that is just going to be amplified as we move forward rather than stamped out. And I think that is a genuine problem. We should not be policing people's thoughts or actions. Let them fall on their face or rise in the ranks according to their actions, not because other people have a problem with what they say or do, right? Rise by your own merits and fall by your own merits is how I see it. So the 3 points that this is all about was that 1, they were terminated ability to publish their work. 2, they destroyed their ability to mitigate or modify the storylines or marketing materials to address any approval issues. And 3, they interfered with third-party contract with Penguin Random House, resulting in the loss of not only the guaranteed advance, but royalties, incentive payments, and the exploitation of sub-licensing rights of the property. That's where you're getting the over $10 million of issue. Now, this was set for 10 years, as you can see here, and it was a good faith agreement, and they would allow them to develop and publish at least one piece of work per year, securing a publishing deal and complying with a few other marketing responsibilities. So we're not just talking about the novel trilogy, right? If this is one work per year, that's either more novels or more marketing opportunities, other publishing opportunities, i.e. Dragonlance in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So that's a pretty big deal, right? Gone. Thrown out. Arbitrarily for no reason. Okay, so this was, October 16th, 2020 that it was filed after they had canceled everything. They're asking in excess of $10 million in relief because of this. Okay, so the internet goes crazy, understandably, right? Not very long later, this is December 18th, 2020, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman dismiss their lawsuit out of nowhere. A little strange, right? Now, what this means without prejudice is that in the future, if Wizards of the Coast reneges on any of the deals with Weiss and Hickman, they can bring this back up. But right now, they dropped it. And that makes everyone wonder what happened. Why did you get some sort of settlement? Are they going to move forward with the project? Did they fire the editors? And then, what changes happened in the background that we're not privy to? Well, apparently a lot. Let's move over here. All right, so Margaret Weiss releases this tweet on December 19th, which is literally the next day. I know some of you have seen that our lawsuit against Wizards of the Coast was dismissed. I can't say anything yet, but watch for exciting news in the weeks to come, and thank you so much for your support. Okay, 2 days later, we get this. Tracy Hickman, contemplating the coming of the happiest of New Years. That was the end of December, right? And then in January, we get this. Margaret Weiss puts out on January 25th, 2021, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman to publish a new series based on classic Dragonlance. So the lawsuit was canceled because Wizards of the Coast came to their right mind and are now going to allow these books to move forward, which for a Dragonlance fan is entirely exciting. So whether it remains the names of Dragons of Deceit and Dragons of Fate, and whatever the third book is going to be, we can look back at the modules and probably get a good clue. This is saying that they're going to create 3 book series of classic Dragonlance novels. The new trilogy will return fans to the most beloved characters from the original novels and will introduce a new, strong protagonist. They will be published by Del Rey Books, an imprint of Penguin Random House, although a publishing date has not yet been formally set. They anticipate announcing when the first book will be released later this year. Quote, "We couldn't be happier to be returning to the world we love. And Dragonlance is what brought Tracy and I together so many years ago. We're thrilled to be able to be doing this for existing lovers of Krynn while bringing our beloved characters to a new generation of readers." Now, they've recategorized the original Dragonlance novels as classic Dragonlance, which tells me we're reaching into an alternate universe of Dragonlance. In the same way that when Disney took over Star Wars, they completely rebranded everything as Star Wars Legends that came before, and everything afterward is considered canon. I think the same thing is going to be happening here with Dragonlance. Everything that came before this agreement is going to be considered Dragonlance Classic, from AD&D First Edition to AD&D 3.5 Edition. And then all the novels up until, the early 2000s. And then starting from now, 2021, it's going to be the current version of Dragonlance. So whether they call it New Dragonlance or just Dragonlance, that's how you're going to be able to differentiate between the universes. And I think it's also going to be a way to re-explore eras without already knowing everything. So we can come into it with new fan speculation, new experience, fresh ideas. I think that's going to be really, really fantastic for those of us who love it. And there's also a quote here that I really, really appreciated. The concept of the new trilogy for Weis and Hickman was that it was a capstone to their life's work and an offering to their fans. A capstone of their life's work is their words. This is really important to them. They've seen their entire career start from nearly being completely broke and bankrupt to being legendarily plunged into the atmosphere. They are literally in the cultural zeitgeist of fantasy now. You cannot think of fantasy without thinking of Dragonlance. Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. I feel like I'm forgetting some. These are the biggest IPs, and Dragonlance is right there with it. That's a big deal. For these very humble, very down-to-earth, very honest, very genuinely good people, these authors, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, to have that success and to have an opportunity to return to what they started with and give it a slightly different take or a fresh take, that's everything that I've always wanted. I mean, I'm so incredibly excited. And so the speculations here is that we're going to be getting, probably in June, because some like Amazon and some other book distributors and retail outlets have slipped. There's a new Dungeons and Dragons book being released in June of 2021. With this announcement by Margaret Weiss, this, we suspect it's going to be the Dragonlance book, which is awesome. And you can expect me to be going crazy with the announcement as soon as I see it. I'll let everyone know about it. And of course, I'm going to be, pre-ordering it and reading it and giving a review of it and talking about it. It's going to be, this whole new trilogy is going to be fuel for my fantasy fanaticism. A little alliteration there. Okay, but again, they started this entire process started back in 2017, and it was 2019 when they got their licensing agreement. Which means that it's not just the novels that were in development. There's no way that they would have just waited for the novels to be released and then started on other marketing materials like Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Campaign World, right? And it was also teased by Joe Manganiello in a Wired article. I'm trying to find my notes here. This was December 11th, 2020. And he teased that he actually had, well, I'll let him tell it.
Okay, the next one is from the Danwood Spiral. If that's a Nine Inch Nails reference, then that's awesome. Currently making some homebrew races for my own D&D setting. Any abstract ideas? Weird is good. I don't know, man. I always thought about, like, you know, a civilization of dark gnomes. I have all kinds of other ideas that I use, you know, in my game and float around. I mean, I'll give you one. I wanted something between dragon and draconian, because I have the 5th edition draconian stats. Don't tell anyone. So I wanted something in the middle there.
So he has the 5th edition draconian stats. He didn't seem to be saying it in the context of this is just something that I personally put together, because then why would he, you know, he didn't say I converted the old 3.5 draconian stats into 5th edition. He's saying I have the 5th edition stats. So the development for the gaming world has already been done. Now, whether it's, you know, going to be licensed and done through Sovereign Press or Wizards of the Coast or, you know, whatever, whoever is going to be taking over the IP at that point, the hard work of converting it is done, which is really exciting. And of course, all they're going to be doing is, oh, sorry, I have this on a slideshow. I'll just let it go. What this is ultimately going to be doing is allowing, as soon as the book is released, the game materials are going to be right after it, because all the heavy lifting has already been done to convert it to the new gaming system. Now, I've played 5th edition briefly a couple of times, literally a handful of times. There's nothing wrong with it. My heart lies in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition. That's where I cut my gaming teeth on, and so that's kind of where my mind is. I played 2nd edition for years and years and years, and I played 3rd edition a little bit, you know, like a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. So I'm familiar with the different iterations. I even played 4th edition for a year or so. And I started with the red box. So I'm very, very familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, the game, and certainly the game mechanics of each edition. And though 1st and 1.5 editions are very complex and convoluted, it's just where my heart lies. And so I'm happy. I can retread those old grounds with ease. The history is there. I've read all the novels, so I know how to, you know, utilize the existing storylines and apply them to 1st edition if I want to do that. But for those who genuinely love 3rd edition, well, 5th edition, this is very exciting for them. And again, if new content is coming out, well, then I'm going to be buying it anyway, because that's the kind of maniac that I am when it comes to Dragonlance. It doesn't matter if I'm playing it or not, I'm still going to be buying it. I made a huge mistake a little while ago of giving all my gaming materials away to an old friend, and I am kicking myself for having done that. But what are you going to do? You live with the mistakes you make in life and you move forward, and that's what I'm going to do. So thank you all so much for tuning in. That's all I have for this episode. What's most exciting to you about this news and announcements? Is it strange that they're going back to the licensing deal with Wizards of the Coast after they had pulled such a fast one on them? Does it make perfect sense to you? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, you can always email me at info@dragonlance-saga.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. You can support the channel and pick up some Dragonlance gaming materials by using the affiliate link in the description below. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll join me in the celebration. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.